Second episode of Techbiz, the very first for the year, and it's exciting to see everyone again. I think such a privilege to be living in a time like this with, I'll call it interesting times, with such a bit of uncertainty. I think the year looks as if we've been through 6 months already with all the global dramas that happened in just 1 month of the year 2026. So it promises that 2026 it's going to be an exciting year in every way. We do believe that. And again, it's just a big welcome to you. There's been great news in the startup ecosystem, PayPal, Paga. There's been quite a number of global upheavals. And that's why staying in touch and looking for communities where you can handhold and support is a must-have in times like this, and especially in a year like this. My name remains Victor Folabi. I'm the founder of Ekow Innovation Center, officially welcoming you to the very tech biz of the year 2026. And this happens to be our 122nd episode of Tech Biz. In the last 121 episodes, we've had the opportunity of bringing subject matter experts onto this platform to share with us from their wealth, depth of knowledge and expertise about different topics that we find relevant to the business of scaling technology and startups. Because again, TechBiz looks at our work that we do in startup is basically with startups, and startups are organizations, green organizations that are technology led, and that's where we work, and that's the support we provide from the stable of Ekow Innovation Center, which is both an incubator and accelerator that helps startups to be able to achieve growth and commercialization. And one of the ways we seek to help them achieve commercialization and scale is by providing the right handholding and support needed in an environment like this, where we have so much institutional voids and resource constraints. And TechBiz offers a platform where we can share with startups and other ecosystem players and founders who need to scale their businesses, who need to grow, share from them tips from different subject matter experts. And over the years, we've learned things around how to use a business model canvas, how to prepare for investment readiness, how to raise funds, how to achieve market fit with your product, go-to-market strategy for different products, how to uh, protect your intellectual property, how to go to market, different go-to-market strategies, and all that. It's been great experience in the last 3 4 years, working with all manners of experts from different walks of life, and it's been such a great ride. And again, we're excited coming back on this road and this journey in the year 2026, as we have us. And again, for this and this particular recording and every other 121st recording of TechBiz, we do encourage that all you have to do is just take the link that my colleagues are dropping in the chat room, is www.equicenter/webinar. You will find all the 121 plus this by 12 noon tomorrow episodes of TechBiz that have been recorded over the years. And I mean, it will do you well to go through them as a resource, repository for your growth. Because again, knowledge is available everywhere now. It's more about where you look for, and I think this is a good place to look for. So my colleagues have dropped the link, but much more than that, it's I want to give a personal invitation to join our community, the TechBiz Nation, where we have different facilitators, different startups. And why should you be in a community like that on WhatsApp and on Telegram? It's where you get the right information to guide you on your journey, whether we're talking of grants, scholarships, accelerator programs, and stuffs like that are happening in the ecosystem. Be the first place you get the information. So, and again, it's a place that's interactive where you can ask questions, you can be able to, I mean, be curious, want to engage based on things you've heard, things you want to verify. It's a good place to be able to check in with the community and find out what people and get the right support on your lonely journey at times of finding and growing your venture. So I invite you, my colleagues also are dropping the link. Use that link to join the TechBiz community of what, almost 3,000 people right now who are tech enthusiasts, founders, ecosystem builders, funders. You might want to be a part of it. So please, my colleagues will be joining in there. And again, what are we looking at this year is something that is dear to my heart. It's been part of my work over the last few years as a scholarly practitioner. It's about looking at execution. I think if there's any better time that organizations need to make execution the core of their strategy, it's now. There's a plethora of ideas and innovations and everything all over the world at the tip of your fingers. With whether it's AI you're talking about, or you're talking about, I mean, blockchain technology, everything seems to be there. There's just so much knowledge. But again, a lot of people are also freezing when it comes to execution and executing flawlessly their plans. And that's why today it's a topic that I find quite exciting. We're looking at the execution mirror, why plans rarely survive the quarter. Because people come in, oh, it's a new year plan, this is what I want to do, and all that. And in 2, 3 months, it falls flat. I mean, we're actually in the final toss, the last week of the month of January already. And I know some people wanted to, shed weight. Maybe they started missing out the gym. People wanted to read. Maybe the few chapters were already lagging behind. And we've seen that generally execution at times in the first quarter, people just, just takes goes southwards. And that's why we're looking at it today. And we're going to have a prolific speaker who I'm delighted to, introduce as also a serial entrepreneur like myself, a startup advisor, a social impact leader, based on the work he's done with extensive experience in supporting founders, businesses, and entrepreneurial ecosystems across Africa. Okay, that's what he's done. I find that quite interesting because again, it aligns with part of the work we've done in Eco Innovation close to a decade, and the work that I've done in close to 2 decades. It's how do we support? How do you go beyond yourself to supporting startups to scale? I mean, he's mentored, coached, guided thousands of African entrepreneurs to scale their ventures and to unlock growth opportunities. Beyond his work at Tano, he's also served as a speaker, trainer, and advisor across multiple initiatives focused on entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic empowerment, helping founders navigate the challenges and make strategic decisions that drive sustainable business outcomes. Because again, it's about survivability and sustainability of businesses. It's the only way you can have economic impact. It must go beyond yourself. And through his mentorship, advisory, and thought leadership, he has helped countless startups align strategy with execution, build resilient teams, and transform ideas into scalable and impactful business. He understands the practical realities of growing a venture in Africa, which is the epicenter of where resource constraint is. Nothing seems to be available to support the founder. So you need to crack and find your way. And he understands that. And he understands that practical realities of balancing ambition with discipline, innovation with execution, and vision with memorable results. So remember, today we will explore the execution mirror, why plans rarely survive. Because we've seen that more than 60% of strategy plans fail to deliver meaningful results within a single quarter. Misalignments, unclear ownerships, shifting priorities, and needed execution blind spots leave teams busy but not productive. And that's what we see a lot. Everybody says, oh, well, I was at work, I've showed up at work. The question is, what results do we have? It's purely an African thing. In the last 2 weeks thereabout, I've been around maybe three countries, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and all. And I've seen how everybody is measured about outcomes and results and productivity, but Africa is still very big on efforts. What I've done, I've showed up every day, I've used my muscle, I've done all that. And I think that's one of the reasons why Africa is still very backward. We're big on effort. I tried my best, but everywhere in the world, things are moved based on outcome and output and results. And that's what this is about. So for founders, this gap can mean missed growth targets, wasted resources, and stalled momentum. In this season, our speaker will help founders identify where execution breaks down, realignment of teams around priorities that truly matter, and apply practical systems that accountability methods to ensure strategies translate into results. Without results, there are no organizations. It's not that I showed up. You know, you are not compensated for showing up. You are compensated for delivery. Okay. By the end of this, we expect attendees to walk away with actionable steps to strengthen execution, drive progress, turn plans into measurable outcomes, quarter by quarter, year on year. So without saying much, it's not my day, it's our founder. I would like you to warmly welcome Mr. Ekow Mensah. Over to you. Charlie, it's nice. Happy to be on the call today.
All right. Thank you, Doc. It's a pleasure.
Thank
Honestly, I
you.
must applaud your team for their persistence.
Thank you.
And it's exciting to be the first for this year. And congratulations for doing over 100 of these. I mean,
Yeah.
the invited speakers need to have like an orientation before we even come, so that we know what has been taught and what has not been taught, so that we don't teach a class that you've already taken.
Oh, but
I mean,
I
when I
think
saw
also
122nd, I was like, oh, but you people, why? You finished masters, you finished PhD. What else is there to be taught?
but it's a dynamic world. And trust me, what we're dealing with last year, there was no president that was kidnapped. There was no gold hitting $5,000 per ounce. Do you know what
A
has
lot
been
has
happening in the
changed.
last 29 days of this year?
A lot has
I
changed.
woke up and I saw investments we're seeing qualis of tech companies, and I saw is it Microsoft and a few other people
Hmm.
trying to invest in open AI, and I'm like, are you guys not supposed to all be rivals? So the alignment and misalignment,
Nah,
no matter
alignment
that stuff.
everywhere,
So,
everywhere,
so yes, in these
everywhere,
30 days,
everywhere.
trust me, we've seen new things this year, and there's nothing as exciting as always refreshing. But
True.
what I love about what you're speaking on and why this touches me is the fact that my work and my journey of entrepreneurship and career journey has taken me around basically every continent apart from Australia. And I think one of the things that's kept Africa down, in Africa, I think I've done work when I used to work in a multinational. I was doing a project that cuts across 23 countries. I've been into maybe 9 to 12 African countries in between that. And I can say I find our culture the same. And it's a culture
Yeah.
of effort, celebrating effort and trial and applauding we are from public sector people who do roads, who should nobody do roads, or somebody that comes on time. So we're so very big on this effort that
Yeah.
results don't really matter. And I think
True.
maybe that's what's holding us back as a continent. But everywhere in the world, people have moved. So I'm excited about this, and having this start in the first Techbiz of the year, it should refire our founders that we need to make things happen. The first month is gone, 11 months to go. Over to you. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. I mean, it's a good foundation you built for my presentation for today. And like I said, well done. And it's something that is also very close to my heart, efforts versus results. I always say that business is numbers. Every other thing is just excuses, especially when your words are more than your numbers. You're only making excuse for non-performance. So as an opening for my presentation, I think I'll let everybody take note of this. Business is numbers. Too many words is only making excuses for non-performance, right? There's nobody who is first in class who has to explain. You don't explain when you're first in class. You only explain when the expectation is for you to be first and you were second, or when you end up being last. Then you need to explain to whoever your stakeholders are why you ended up there and not the first. So, I mean, one of the things that everybody has to bear in mind is that when you're in business, the most important thing is the numbers. Okay, what is coming in, what is going out, everything else is secondary, everything else is tertiary. So then if you don't put focus on the numbers, then you're not in business. And to say that as well, just as a prelude to my presentation, is especially in Africa, where our faith is very high and we believe in divine interventions and things like that, there is something that all of us have been given equal measure of, for which we exchange for business. I mean, for money, right? Business is really just exchanging value for a man-made currency, which is cash, right? But then there is something that divinely God has given all of us, for which we use through our business to get this cash. And everybody has equal measure of, which is time, right? God, in his infinite wisdom and mercy and goodness, has given each and every one of us, African, Australian, Asian, in every continent, their time is one, 24 hours. And whatever business you're doing, what you're saying is that whatever product or service beyond its addressing a need or solving a problem is helping you to convert this God-given gift of time into man-made currency of money. So at every point in time, when you have your target set for the year, what you need to do is that you break this target down into even seconds, right? So you have your annual targets, you break it down to your monthly targets, you break it down to your daily targets, you break it down to your hourly targets, and you can even go further in breaking it down to your minutes targets. What that now tells you is that the value of your business in comparison to the targets that you've set for your business, this is how much it is. So at every point in time, when you go to bed and you haven't made that money allocated to your business by time, it means that you've actually spent it. And that's just my theory. I believe that every target you set for yourself has already been given you in time. What you do is that you convert that into cash. So the businesses that are doing well, they've been able to figure out a way of converting their time into cash. But there's those that are not doing well. Unfortunately, they've not figured out a way of converting their time into cash. So what they are inevitably doing is that they are spending their money every day. So just bear this in mind. You've already been gifted with what you need to make money, which is time. But every day you don't make the money, you've spent that money. Okay. So that's just background to what I am presenting today. Today we are looking at, let me just quickly share my screen so that we can follow. And I believe I just have about 30 minutes. Please let me know if you can see my screen. We are talking about the execution mirror, why plans really survive the quarter, right? And we are focusing this on founder-led African SMEs and startups. You know, our situation in Africa is quite peculiar, mainly because we have this overwhelming faith that everything is going to be okay. We are not very particular about time, and that's why I respect this organization so much. Your four is your four, and you keep to time, which actually is indicative of why you're succeeding, right? So we're going to address certain things that are peculiar to companies that are unable to follow through their plans. And then we go deeper into what I believe is the core of the problem, especially with founder-led businesses. So let's just quickly go through the agenda for the day. So I'm not sure what businesses are here, but then you can put them in the chat box, maybe the name of your business and what you do, so that I can tailor some part of my presentation to suit your sector or industry. But generally, this is what we are talking about today. And my slides are free to share. So please feel free to share with all the participants after the program. So we're going to look at the 7 common reasons, the familiar pattern, the African SME reality, the execution is a mirror, the founder is a system, why plans die before the quarter ends. And we are looking at something called the hidden driver, which is temperament. And then we'll look at the temperament trap, and then we'll look at the SME execution paradox, and then from temperament-led to system-led, and then we'll have what we call the execution rhythm, and the founder's execution question, and then we have some closing reflections and Q&A if we have time enough for this, right? So I'll quickly, and please, if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box, because maybe after my presentation, we may not have enough time to go through the questions, but put in the chat box as and when it comes to you, and then I'll address them as I go ahead. All right, so execution is everything, especially now, as Doc said, there are so many tools that prevent you from having an excuse for wasting time. Okay, there were times in building our businesses where we needed to spend days just figuring out how to write a proposal, how to clean up our CVs for a bid, you know, all those things. Right now, in seconds, you can get it. So the differentiation now, more than ever, is with people that can execute against people that cannot execute. Action versus words, plans, and then ideas, right? So there are tools that currently translate your ideas into tangible things that you can present immediately. There are tools that can even help you build web apps in minutes and seconds, right? So difference is really those who move as against those who don't. And those who have succeeded through action in the past would even succeed more, because the help that they needed to fine tune the ideas, right now there are tools that can easily do that for them. So if you weren't succeeding in the past, you need to now figure out, okay, it wasn't about lack of trying, but probably it was about the fact that some of these reasons were at play. So let's look at the first one, the illusion of a good plan. Everybody, you know, feels like they have a good plan. So then they put the strategies together, and then they overestimate the capacity of this plan, especially when I'm not sure how you call your 31st to first. but most of the people in Ghana call it crossover, right? So then when we are crossing over, and then for those of us who go to church and everything, we are full of faith that the year coming will be better than the year before. So then most of our plans are mostly overestimated, right? Because it's driven by faith and not practical things, practical realities. Now, the second reason is that strategy is not translated into work. And I'm glad that as the opening, it was clearly stated that one of our biggest challenges is execution. But beyond the execution is also accountability, right? Holding people accountable and it getting to a point where it looks as though it's even micromanagement. And a lot of bosses probably would not want to do that because this whole thing of delegation and then giving people the freedom to make mistakes and all in Africa, we don't really have that kind of time and capacity to be giving people the freedom to make too many mistakes. But we'll get there. So when strategy is not translated into work and we don't have weekly execution rules that guides the performance or the results that we're looking for, that can also be a big problem, right? Ownership is diffused. When everyone is responsible, then honestly no one truly is, right? So then in your businesses, whenever you have specific things that need to be done, make sure there are people that you've directly assigned that specific things to and you can hold them responsible for. But if it's a generic thing where you believe people can handle it, nobody probably ends up doing it, right? Now, the fourth thing is that the organization overestimates its capacity. And this, connects well with the step two or the reason two. A lot of the times we don't have the capacity to fulfill the things that we want to do. For instance, I have a project that I was thinking that this year we're going to get about 50,000 people on it, right? And the team is a lean team. We're not more than four. So then when we broke the 50,000 down and realized how much we probably need to onboard every day, we immediately knew that honestly 50,000 was completely overestimated, right? So sometimes the organization and the people overestimates their capacity, and because of that, they fail in their execution. The next reason is that incentives reward survival, not progress, right? So people quickly learn what truly matters, not from speeches, but from consequences. And this actually is where accountability sits. Whatever you tolerate becomes the norm. It's so in life, it's so in business, it's so everywhere else. If you're a business owner, you're a founder, you're a business leader, whatever you tolerate every day, everybody's watching, that eventually becomes the norm, it becomes the culture. And if it rewards people for non-performance, then it's not about what you say, it's really about what they've seen you tolerate. And that's what's going to go on in your organization. The sixth reason is that leadership disappears after the kickoff. Some of us, especially those of us who call ourselves serial entrepreneurs, we're good with starting, but not good with following through. So then we develop the thing, every idea, every business, every strategy. We sit with the team, we map it out and everything, and then we move on to the next thing. And then when you are absent, mostly the performance is not probably the same. So that also is a reason. And then the seventh one is that execution is not a skill, it is a system, right? So high performing organizations do not execute better by motivation alone. They design for execution. So it's like clockwork, right? I always say that entrepreneurship is different from business. Entrepreneurship is finding a solution to a problem or a need, right? Through innovation and all those things, right? At the end of the day, you've been able to develop a prototype that works. So most entrepreneurship efforts lead in prototypes. But when you talk about business, we are talking about products, right? The moment you move from entrepreneurship, where it's a prototype that people have accepted as good and it solves their problem, it meets them at the point of their need. What happens now is that you move it into what we call products. Business people work with products, not prototypes. So when you're an entrepreneur, your excitement is around innovation, finding solutions, solving problems. That's what excites you the most, right? But the challenge with that is that if you don't translate it into a product and focus your energy in capturing market size, then you are not in business. Because when you look at all the businesses that have done well in the world, right? They focus on, is this a product or is it a prototype? If it's a product, then our focus is we need to capture enough market size. Business is about capturing enough market size. And that's why there is no sector that is not 100% in market size. And every business that is a market leader, their focus is capturing enough market size. And in percentage wise, you need to have more percentage than any other competitor in the same industry. So for those of you who call yourself entrepreneurs, it's okay. But your struggle is real because your focus is on innovation, how exciting the prototype is, getting an MVP, making your pitches, going for investment programs, getting into Eco Innovation Center and all that. It's exciting. Pitch decks, business models, it's all good. But then when you're in business, you don't have time for that. The moment you're in business, your focus as a business leader is in capturing market size. In fact, 90% of your time as a business owner or business leader is to capture market size, is to get clients and keep getting clients, right? Not necessarily. That's why businesses that have succeeded have what we call research and innovation units or departments. So it's just a unit that keeps innovating and then trying to come up with new things. But the truth is, if you look at businesses that have succeeded, and let me just give a generic business like Coca-Cola, right? For years, Coca-Cola is over a century old, and their formula for Coke is the same, right? The only time they tried to change it, a whole city went on, demonstration for them to go back to Coke Classic. And Coke Classic has survived for over 100 years. That is what business is. The moment people accept your product and they are willing to buy, in fact, willing to buy is at prototype stage. The moment they start buying, your focus should be fulfilling orders. So capturing enough market size and then becoming a market leader, right? So building a system that enables you to consistently capture market size is what actually makes you a successful business owner or a business leader. So I hope you are getting these things. It's not about the exciting part of business. In fact, innovation is expensive for already established businesses. And that's why for most of them, they have to allocate specific, like revenue streams or investment to focus on innovation. Now, before I go into my next slide, let me just share this with you. There are three ways you make money in business. The first one is the common way, which is the revenue. Okay. So then you have a product or a service, you give it to a customer gives you money in return. Simple as that. Okay. So that's the first one. And those that want to expand their business and using revenue, you expand business with profits, not revenue, right? And profit is a policy. So as a business, as part of your planning, your profit margin is a policy that you write down that every income that comes, you're working towards making sure that 10% of it is profit. So profit is not necessarily what you focus on. Revenue is what you focus on. But in planning what profit margins you need is part of your policy development. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but that's what it is. So the first is revenue. The second is investments, right? So that's when you hear all these tech firms getting investment in whether debt financing, equity financing, quasi financing, angel investments, and all those things. And that's the difference between the African ecosystem and then the Western ecosystem. But I mean, gradually it's coming down, right? Gradually, you've seen a lot of your companies attracting a lot of financing. And now that PayPal and all those giants are coming to Africa, it's a way of knowing that the investment window is widely opening. And when you structure your business properly, you're going to attract such investment as well. So the second is investment. And globally, investment is actually what makes businesses more money than revenue. If you look at all the tech giants in the world, the investments that they get, whether it's through private equity or the stock market or whatever, the valuation of the business is basically based on the valuation of the business in the stock markets, right? And then the value of their stocks. So the African stock market has to be tightened. We need to really put in a lot of work to make sure that currently, I don't think we have any African stock market. The biggest ones, I'm sure, are in South Africa, Kenya, and some of, like Morocco and all those things. West Africa, yes, I'm not sure about the Nigerian stock market, but then that's something that we need to really focus on because honestly, it's not just about efforts. Sometimes the ecosystem needs to be properly built. And that's why incubators and accelerators like Eco Innovation are very, very important because they are the ones that push policy to ensure that we are getting to unlock that investment part of business as well. Now, the third one is interest from your assets and your investments as a business, right? So those are the three ways that businesses make money. There may be other ways, but these are the three primary ways that businesses make money. So just um, that's just for your benefits. So do you agree? In founder-led African SMEs and startup, execution is never just operational, it is personal. And this is what I am basing my presentation on. This is what I am basing my presentation on. A lot of the times in African-led or founder-led SMEs and startups, especially in our continent, execution is mostly personal. When the boss is happy, things move. When the boss is not happy, things don't move. And we're going to look at that because there's a saying that everything rises and falls on leadership. And that's a saying by John Maxwell. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And sometimes we may complain that, okay, resource wise, we are constrained and all those things. But the truth is, why is it that in the same country, in the same continent, some businesses are attracting financing and some businesses are not? And mostly it comes from not just the products or the services, because some of you have very good products and services, but then are not being led by individuals that know what to do to be able to fully actualize the value of those products and services. So I don't know if you agree, but then let me explain why I'm saying this. Now, let's look at the familiar pattern. Every year starts the same way. We make our plans, there's high energy, we have ambitious targets, and then there's generally a strong commitment to the fulfillment of the targets every year, right? Most of you do it even before the year ends. Some of you do it just when the year begins. But by the end of the quarter, priorities have shifted, momentum has faded, accountability blurs across different units, and then results completely disappoint. And this is what we see year after year in most organizations. Now, the problem is not planning. Africans are good with planning. We are good with, well, documentation, yes, but then when it comes to documenting the things we do, we fall short because when you look at the difference between African businesses and foreign businesses, most of us are informal, and then most of them are properly formal, right, or formalized. But the problem is not planning, it is execution and what it reveals about leadership, systems, and culture. The problem and the reason why year after year we end up having good plans, but we are not able to properly execute has to do with leadership, systems, and culture. Leadership, systems, and culture. And I'm going to try to go through these three quickly, right? I think I have just a few minutes to wrap up. So the first one is the African reality. Why this hits founder-led SMEs and startups the hardest is that mostly the founder is the vision holder. The founder is also the decision maker. The founder is also the execution fallback. And the founder, mostly when it comes to running the business, tends to, run a very informal system that revolves around them. So the systems are very informal and they are consistently evolving. And this is one of the reasons why sometimes we don't even attract very top performers or top employees. Because you see, top performers need systems, stability, and the room to produce results. And then when the systems or whatever is in the company is informal and is consistently evolving, you may not be able to attract top performers. So execution is personal. Now let's look at the mirror. This reflects leadership design, decision habits, power distribution, accountability culture, business capacity, and then resource availability. Okay? When execution is not as it is expected, these are some of the reasons why it's happening so. How the leadership is designed, how decision is taking in the organization, how power is distributed. And for some of the consultancies I do for businesses, you realize that there are people with positions like titles, but they don't have the power to take decisions and then to follow through with those decisions. Even though they have the titles, they probably almost always have to run it by the founders or the heads of the institution. So then things delay, decisions are not taken quickly, and then everything just, drags. Okay, so they have titles, but they don't have any authority. And that sometimes is a big problem in African businesses. Execution is not a motivation issue, it is a design issue. Like I said, entrepreneurship is different from business. Please, and that's just my definition and from my observation from almost 2 decades of doing this. Entrepreneurship is always nice, exciting, but business is boring. Business is the repetitiveness of activities that have proven to provide results, right? So business, you've done certain things that work. You need to consistently do the same thing over and over and over again. Business is the repetitiveness of activities that have worked over the years. That's why you don't enter a bank and expect that things would drastically change. No. In entrepreneurship, things change consistently. But when you enter businesses, banks, insurance companies, all those established businesses, things are supposed to be consistently repetitive and predictable. When things are not consistently repetitive and predictable in your organization, then you have not built the system yet. And that's why you have a lot of meeting trying to, encourage your people, you design incentive packages and all those things, and still the result doesn't show. All right. So it is a design issue. Now let's look at this. The founder is the system. In most founder-led businesses, SME startups, the founder is the system. So he sets the pace, he signals priorities, he defines what is acceptable and what is not, and then oftentimes he becomes the bottleneck as well. Decisions are delaying because you've sent a report to the founder and you're waiting for the founder to make a decision. The founder has traveled, the founder is not seated, so things cannot be done, transfers cannot be made, what do you call it, suppliers cannot be paid. Everything revolves around the founder or the founders. So then there isn't a system that determines the continuity of business operations, execution, or results, right? So why plans die before the quarter ends? 4 predictable execution breakdowns. First is decision bottlenecks at the top. Delegation without real authority. Too many priorities competing. And then accountability becomes emotional, not strategic, not by a system, but by a person. If you like the people, even if they are not doing right, you try to give them chances over chances over chances. But the truth is, you hire fast, you hire slowly and you fire fast. There's a saying that the first time it occurs to you to let somebody go, let them go immediately. But anyway, because you like people, sometimes when founders see themselves in other people that are working for them, they give them a long rope. And that long rope is actually cost to the organization. Now, let's talk about temperament. This is something that in Ghana, I've been teaching a lot of business leaders, which is something we don't really. And the surprising thing is that some business leaders don't even know about this thing called temperament and how it affects business, right? Because these are natural things that just creeping in. You can go for a workshop that day, you'll be so powered up. In fact, the whole week, you are motivated, you are driven, you want to do something just out of one workshop. Maybe after this, you are driven, you go back to work, you want to do this, you want to do that. I say that the enemy of motivation is sleep. If you came for a workshop, right, and then you got so pumped up and you never slept, you probably will be very successful. But the more you sleep, the more the motivation dwindles. And when it dwindles, then you need to get motivation again to keep coming out. But the truth is, the thing that is innate in you is actually sometimes what controls and informs your decision as a leader. Now, let's look at this. Temperament shapes execution more than strategy. And when I break it down, I'm sure you get to understand. If you don't know about this, please do some research on it. Know which ones are most predominant and which ones are not. And of course, even though there are four primary temperaments, some of you have multiple, right? Some of you, when you're rich, you are one temperament, and when you're broke, you are another temperament. So you have all that, but then which one is the most predominant and which one is affecting your execution the most, right? So temperament determines how fast decisions are made, how much control is released, how conflict is handled, and how accountability is enforced. Okay, this is why we call it the hidden driver. And for most organizations that everything it revolves around the founder, this thing I'm coming to teach you is very, very, very important. And I'll try my best to do this as quickly as I can. All right. I don't know if we have any questions so far, but let me pause a bit and then see if we have any. Okay. Right. We don't. Okay. So we don't. So I'll just go ahead quickly. All right. So let's look at what temperament is. Temperament in this context is the founder's default leadership wiring. In this context, you have temperaments defined in several contexts, right? But in this context of business, entrepreneurship, execution, we're looking at temperaments as the founder's default leadership wiring. It is how the founder naturally responds to pressure, how they make decisions when uncertain, how they exercise control or release it, and how they handle conflict, risk, and accountability. Okay, since it's a PowerPoint, I'm sure you would be able to go over it if you've missed anything. Temperament determines how execution behaves when the founder is not consciously managing it. You see, I told you that the difference between entrepreneurship and business is that entrepreneurship is ever evolving because you're always looking for solutions, you're looking for innovation, you're looking to solve a problem. Business doesn't necessarily have to keep changing. The repetitiveness of what works is what makes a business. So imagine if the founder, in the repetitiveness of business, unconsciously starts exhibiting his natural leadership wiring. It has the potential to really affect the business, right? So let's look at the four temperaments quickly. The first one, as you may know, is what is known as the choleric founder. This person is known as the driver. If you are a choleric founder, you are always on fire. In fact, when we talk about Africa, if we are breaking Africa down into four temperaments, in fact, let me just talk about West Africa. Okay. If you're breaking West Africa down, Nigerians collectively, and forgive my overgeneralization, would be known as the cholerics of West Africa. Because you guys seem to be always on fire. Whenever you come together, you say we are woefully slow as a people. Ghanaians, we take our time. Sometimes it's quite annoying, but then we do take our time, right? We are not in a hurry. But Nigerians seem to be like cholerics in nature. And like I said, forgive me for my overgeneralization, but that's what we've seen. You guys are like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's do it, let's do that. And that's what the choleric founder is. He's a driver, right? His strengths are they are decisive, they are bold, they move fast, and then when crises happen, they're able to hold their own. Crisis resilient. They love risk, right? Now, some of the execution risk associated with this type of founder, and as we go through it, please try and associate yourself with one of them or maybe multiple of them. But the emphasis here is that how is it affecting your execution? And with time, I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. But the challenge with a choleric founder is that they micromanage. Mostly when they are not there, people tend to relax. Okay. But the truth is that when you are consistently micromanaging as a business owner, you're not perfecting your leadership. Because you see, the essence of leadership is to become obsolete or obsolete. The essence of leadership is to get to a point where you're not needed any longer. That's why it doesn't make sense to me when I see countries that their presidents have stayed on for so long. Then they are not good leaders because why? They haven't built a system that does not depend on them. The essence of good leadership is when the leader with time is not needed any longer. and whoever is running the system with whatever the leader has set in place as a system is doing fantastically well. But then if everything revolves around you and without you, things cannot move, you probably are a choleric leader who gets results when they are there. You get overly stressed and you get to the point where you feel like you have all these employees, but you're still the one doing most of the work. And that's a problem. Now, the second thing is a strategy shift made hotter because you're so pumped up. You know, sometimes when you find an opportunity, you want to explore that, you want to explore that, you want to explore that. And then sometimes with time, things become and your people just get confused, right? And then the last one is founder dependency. In your absence, not much happens, which is a problem. Okay. Now, speed without structure kills sustainability. Speed without structure kills sustainability. And most choleric founders are fast, but then they probably do not put in place the needed structures. Now, let's go to the next founder, which is the sanguine founder, my founder. We inspire. If you're in an organization and your boss loves meetings, almost every day you guys are having a meeting. They love, you know, people. I always say that choleric founders or leaders are driven by results. Sanguine founders or leaders are driven by relationships. Okay, they love to see people. And let me just pause and say this. The objective of business or the mission of business is not to create employment. I know that some of you, especially the social capital, the socialist, will come after me. But I would emphasize this. The essence of business or the objective of business is not to create jobs or to create employment. All right. The need to employ people comes naturally with demand and profits or investments. Are we okay? In fact, if you have to do it in one line, demand necessitates employment, not business. The focus of every business is to get and serve a customer for money. That's it, really. Don't, we have this habit of making things complex, but let's simplify things today. The reason why you're setting up a business is not because you're a good person. If you're a good person, then go work for an NGO. Don't even set up an NGO. But your goodness will come when your business has succeeded in a point where you have enough to do sustainable CSR, right? But when you set up a business, the focus is to make money. And the money now brings in the need to employ. And that's why when you set up a business, you have a little investment and you hire so many people. What happens is that with time, you have to fire all of them as well. And that's sometimes a challenge with sanguine founders. They love people. So mostly everybody in the office is happy because he likes to have meetings. He's always inspiring people. He's always, noticing, when people are unhappy and he's bringing all these exciting things. But the challenge is that even though everybody seems happy, the result is always affected because the sanguine founder is charismatic. They have lots of ideas. They are people who almost always call themselves like group of companies or serial entrepreneurs. And we are all at fault. The cholerics and the sanguines love serial entrepreneurship. But maybe one day when I present on serial entrepreneurship, you'll see how the model works. It's not about wanting to be, it just happens that you want to block, exit points. So then you set up subsidiaries to block those exit points. That's what makes you a serial entrepreneur, but we'll get there. So they are charismatic, people love them, they establish relationship easily, they have lots of ideas, they are relationship driven, and they have high energy. Whenever the boss is in the office, everywhere is lit. But the problem with execution when it comes to the risk is too many initiatives. Sometimes it confuses their people. Like, what are we really doing? Okay, today we are doing this, tomorrow we are doing this, the next day we are exploring this, he is asking us for ideas, we are doing a presentation on that. Like, where are we really going? So the level of confusion in a sanguine run institution is mostly high. And when that happens, you lose top performance because top performers don't thrive well in confusion. Okay, now weak follow through. They are good starters, but they can't follow through. And that's why I admire the Ekow Innovation Center, because if you've done 122, then you're not just good starters, you're also very good with follow through. So well done. Now, priority confusion. In some of my consulting work, I get into the organization, we do an analysis of all the revenue streams and realize that there are too many, and then they don't even know exactly which one is their cash cow or which one brings them the most money because they have a lot of ideas and then priority is missed completely. Now, let's do this quickly. The melancholic founder. These guys, and please, if you find yourself in the first two, whether you're a choleric or a sanguine founder, it's important for you to get a co-founder who is melancholic. Honestly, when you look at the structure of most of these globally recognized companies that have done very well cross country, cross continents, mostly the charismatic one is the one that we know, the one that everybody is familiar with. And they have the melancholic one that is quiet, that nobody mostly hears about. But then when the two come together, whilst one is driving people to act, the other one is cleaning up, and then making sure the structures are in place. Because you see, even investments does not thrive well in chaos. Okay, so then when you are a founder who is identifying themselves as either a sanguine or a choleric, try and get a co-founder who is also not a sanguine or a choleric. Just imagine the confusion in the office when the two of them are always on fire. Always get somebody who is cool-headed and then also good with strategy, because melancholic founders are very good with strategy. The only problem is that because they are analytical, structured, quality focused, and then risk aware, they tend to be very slow when it comes to execution. They tend to be slow when it comes to taking decisions. And then, when it comes to bottlenecks and all that, when they have to approve things that will move fast, then that's where the problem is. So imagine if you work for a melancholic founder and you probably are a sanguine or a choleric. When you need decisions made quickly, you almost always be frustrated because it's not forthcoming. Not that they intentionally want to be slow, but they just want to make sure that there is no T that has not been crossed or I that has not been dotted. They want to reduce their risk to zero or even negative before they take a decision. And what happens is that companies like this miss out on deadlines, miss out on results, and then unfortunately, they miss out on progress. All right. So, um, perfection delays progress. Perfection delays progress. On the sanguine bits, energy creates momentum, discipline creates results. Energy creates momentum, discipline creates, that's for sanguine. But then for melancholic, perfection delays progress. And especially in this fast moving world of technology and AI, honestly, there's nothing called perfection. Because the thing that you think is perfect yesterday, by today, something has changed, and then your so perfect plan is not perfect anymore. So it's not about waiting to get it all right. It is moving and then correcting as you go along. But that will not sit well with a melancholic founder. So then if you don't like what I just said about it's not about perfection, but moving and correcting, automatically you should know that you're a melancholic founder. Now let's look at the last one, right? The stabilizer. Now, phlegmatics are by default very suspicious people. They are very suspicious, even though they are very, very loyal, right? Their circles are very close. They don't bring in too many people, they just make sure that there's harmony everywhere. So when you have a phlegmatic HR, they make sure that everywhere is good, everywhere is beautiful, everybody is happy, there's harmony, there's calmness. They don't like sudden movements, right? So imagine a founder who is a choleric with an HR who is a phlegmatic. They will always be the HR would leave eventually, because you see, they don't like sudden changes, sudden movements. They like harmony. But the problem is harmony without standards, it leads to stagnation. So phlegmatic founders are stabilizers. Their strengths are calm leadership. Their teams are loyal to them, because you see, nothing passes them by. When you're unhappy, they see it. When you're happy, they see it. When things are not good, like they notice almost everything. So their teams are so loyal to them. But the problem is that because they are stabilizers, They are not able to hold people accountable or say it as it is, right? So they avoid tough conversations and tough calls. When a phlegmatic has to fire someone, it probably will take about 6 months to 1 year before they make that decision, because they will live in their head so much that they would be thinking of the consequences, not to the company, but to the people that they want to fire. Like, and they will give them multiple chances before they eventually gather the courage to let them go. So, unfortunately, phlegmatic founders are taken for granted a lot. And those are the founders that ask themselves, I'm a good person, so why do people do this to me? It's only because they can. All right. So when it comes to emotional intelligence, they are good. Their culture is strong in the organization. Everybody knows what's going on, right? But the problem is that they avoid tough calls, they tolerate underperformance, and then they are very slow when it comes to movement. So, which one of these are you? Which one of these are you? Please, if you can put in the chat box for me, I would be very, very, very happy. Let me just go to the chat box and see, how can a consultant ensure timely execution when decisions are mostly dependent on external parties? Get more external parties. All right, let your funnel be big enough. When you're running, especially a B2B business, and then you are looking at just a few people, what happens is that your funnel is small. So then your dependency on your potential or prospective customer is very high. So then your business has no life of its own beyond their decisions or indecisions. So my advice immediately will be, don't get your business to a point where it is solely dependent on one decision by an external partner. Get others, widen your funnel, right? And especially if it's a service business, if the sector is choked in your state, go to another. Oh, am I muted? Okay. Hello.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
you were muted for like a minute, but I think
Okay.
you're back on track now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I don't
Okay.
know if you heard my IE
I mean,
for.
we had your response to that particular question,
Okay.
but I think
Okay.
there's a second question in there as we
How do
keep
I
going
stand
up.
out in marketing my products?
Yeah.
How do you stand out where? If you have unlimited resources, standing out is very easy. Just it's like campaign. Look at what happens when there's a presidential campaign. They utilize every platform, both traditional and then digital, right? New media. But the truth is that this question is not complete. Add when you don't have enough money, limited resources, limited expertise, or limited time. There should be a constraint for which you are, or you don't have the skill set or the knowledge,
Mm.
right? I always tell people that, listen, the focus of a founder or a business leader is not to be an expert at the nitty gritties of business. Because you see, the nitty gritties of business are supposed to be done by who we call professionals, and professionals are supposed to be paid. So when you're a founder or an entrepreneur, your focus mainly when you start your business is the investment, the money you need to pay the people to do the work that you can't or shouldn't do, right? So how do you stand up out in marketing? You already know the answer, but the question is when you don't have enough money. So my answer will be get enough money, hire professionals, and they'll do a great job for you. So your focus should be how do I get enough money? But if you can't get enough money and you want to learn the skill, please, AI can help, social media can help, YouTube can help. There are countless information out there to help you. Now, how do we survive the onslaught of AI as we progress into the techie terrain of the future? Buy shares in AI companies. Why would you why would you want to survive big? You see, the truth is the world changes, right? Almost every time the world evolves. Now it is evolving faster than we knew it to. But if you're a business, okay, one, You don't need to compete with the giants. You need to complement the giants. And if you looked at the AI trends, most of the people that are attracting investments are doing things that are complementing the giants, and eventually their exit strategy is that the giants will buy them. Okay, so it's not about surviving as it is about, are you doing something that complements them? Are you doing something that, provides an avenue for other people to leverage on without having to spend all the money we spend on AI currently? Okay, but the truth is, if a business is not looking at how AI can influence their results or execution, then you are already far back. Okay, but then let me finish my presentation and we can go deeper into this. But hey, don't fight when you can just buy shares and let them work for you. Because really, you know that the face of employeeism is is slowly becoming obsolete, right? Where people get jobs. Because now what we need to learn is, how do people buy shares in these companies? Because imagine if everything is automated, then you wouldn't need to go to work. You just have to sit at home and get your dividends. But we'll get there. But don't be afraid, really. We've survived social media, we've survived Microsoft, we've survived mobile phones, mobile money. We'll also survive AI. But then you cannot live without it. Okay, how can you join the Africa? Okay, please join, don't join African, just join Ekow Innovation. And then when we partner, automatically we can leverage on the same network. So please join Ekow Innovation Center. Are we okay? All right, so don't. Sorry, the temperament trap. What happens when temperament runs the business? What happens when temperament runs the business? Let's look at it. In summary, cholerics create dependency. So sometimes you encounter big businesses, things cannot move, major decisions cannot be taken when the owner or the founder is not available. I've seen that in a lot of thriving, these are thriving businesses, or big businesses. But unfortunately, the system is still personal. So then, in the absence of the choleric boss or the choleric leader or the choleric founder, things are not able to happen. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I think maybe we can just round up so we can close another 2 minutes. Usually
All
to
right,
close
let's do
the
that.
hour. Yeah.
Okay, so when you look at sanguine, the most predominant um, 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 when you go into a sanguine run business, you realize that there's so much chaos because there's so much happening at the same time. Melancholic run businesses often are stagnated, right? And then phlegmatic complacency, especially if they won before. Now, what happens with the African SME? The founder is the approval system, temperament goes unchecked, structure is informal, and accountability is personal. Now, how do you change this? Moving from temperament led to a system led. One, limit priorities, reduce it to maximum of three. If you can't, I mean, especially when you are resource constrained, just have one thing you want to accomplish, one thing you want to accomplish the whole year, and then focus on that. Log strategy long enough to test it. Delegate authority and not just tasks. Review progress weekly, not emotionally. Please, when you go into businesses, they hold performance characters or performance people accountable every week. And the last one is that build leadership layers that counterbalance founders' blind spots. Now, the rhythm: one, quarterly priorities, weekly execution reviews, name owners for the things that you've assigned, clear metrics of performance, and then make the consequences visible. Please, if people even want to leave, let them leave. But the truth is that let the consequence of non-performance be visible, because the moment you don't make it visible, now it becomes a culture and then it thrives. All right. So that is my presentation for today. I don't know if there are any questions, but I think my time is up. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
the
you so
opportunity.
much. That was a power-packed session. And I do think there's no way we're not going to have you back. Maybe one of the big programs, MACAC, AOT. We need to fly from Ghana. After all, Ghana is just like me going from Lagos to Abuja.
I
So
know, right?
what is it, man? But again, this was power packed, and it was a roller coaster. At times, I keep asking myself, should Techbiz be 1 hour? Should it be 1.5 hours? But I think that we
It's
just see the
okay.
best we
Yeah,
can do now. But thanks for that. I mean, that was insightful. And you see, one of the reasons why we're excited bringing practitioners is they speak from word of experience. Is not reading from a motivational quote or reading from a book. It's what they've seen, what they've lived, what they practice, and examples make it relatable. And
true.
again, just a big thank you, big thank you, big thank you to you for honoring this platform and again sharing from your world of experience. And I believe it deserves a lot of thank you and claps in the chat room. Again, we're streaming across all the platforms. The Zoom is just for a selected few who have registered and who belong to the ecosystem. So again, it's streamed across. And to everybody who is on this call, just so that you know that this recording as and this presentation, as well as all the other 121, are available by tomorrow, 12 noon, on the link. My colleague will drop the link again, and it's there in the chat room. Echo, www.echoicenter.com/webinar. And you'll find that there. And again, like I said, keep a date, try and join the community where we can support you, where we can handhold you and guide you on this very difficult journey of entrepreneurship and setting up your structure and all that. It will be a privilege. Thank you so much. And yes, I know we must call it an end, but I wanted to find out we have two major big events you do in Eco Innovation Center, two massive ones that we use to shape industry and influence policy. And one of them comes up in a few months, and that is the MAC, the Marketing and Technology Conference. And just to find out, do my colleagues have that? Yes, I think the flyer is coming up. And this is the first time and the first place you will be hearing these. The guys have been doing great work. This comes out on the 10th of May and is the cultural algorithm, the AI and human experience. We're talking about, and thanks for me. People said something about AI. How do we live out and come understand how this works and what's happening and how does it shape, how is it going to shape things and change our life? Is the cultural algorithm. How does culture or how does AI and culture, how do they work together? How do they collaborate to shape, or which one moves which? Does AI shape our human experience, and or does culture ultimately influence how we will adopt AI and how AI will influence the way we live? Keep a day with us, 10th of May. We will start with hackathons and all that. And I believe registration will be open, I think, from 1st of February. So keep a date with us. It promises to be explosive as usual. And again, I want to say a big thank you. I know I have to have a quick stop. Big thank you to everyone. Please make sure you do follow Eco Innovation Center on all our handles and go to our website. We have training programs, we have information from time to time, we have different programs that come up. Make sure that you do follow. And of course, my colleague has dropped the registration for the MAC, that's the Marketing and Technology Conference, as the foremost leader in shaping conversations around marketing and technology intersection in Nigeria and of course in West Africa. We encourage you to join to register for MACAC at macac.tech. Please do keep a date and be a part of it. I want to say a big thank you to everyone, and of course our speaker for today, Ekow, who's done a fantastic job, and all the people who have stayed back at work between 5 and 6 p.m. to be a part of this. I want to say a big thank you to you. I want to say we appreciate you. I want to say we do not take your constantly keeping a day with us for granted. Every last Thursday of the month, it's been phenomenal. We thank you for all you do, and we thank you for cheering us on and encouraging us. And we do hope that I see you again on the last Thursday of the month of February. Again, from me, the founder of Eco Innovation Center, Victor Benga Folavin, saying thank you very much and you have a great evening, everyone.